All right, this news just in. A UK daily has reported that Indian nurse Jacintha Saldanha was found hanging in her flat and that she had cut off all contact with her family immediately after being dragged into the prank call controversy. The revelations only make the mystery surrounding Jacintha's death a little murkier. Remember, so far, what we do know is that the inquest will be opening tomorrow. Tomorrow at 9:30 London time is when the inquest will be opening at the coroner's office, and now a UK daily says that she was found hanging in her flat after cutting ties with her family who are based in Bristol. Well, there's another angle that's been added to the mystery surrounding Jacintha's death. A report in the UK newspaper The Mirror gives details never revealed before. For the first time, the newspaper has revealed that Jacintha was found hanging in her house on Friday morning. The newspaper reconstructs the sequence of events before Jacintha Saldanha's death after collating the testimonies of people around her. Remember, Jacintha had been prank called 3 days before she was found dead. According to her husband, she went completely incommunicado immediately afterwards. She was living in a flat in London. Her husband and her 2 children lived in Bristol. Her husband tried to contact her desperately but got no response. He then sent a friend to check on her in the nurse's flat on Thursday. She also returned when she got no answer. The next morning, Jacintha was found hanging inside her flat. These new revelations raise several questions that make the story even murkier. First, did Jacintha hang herself, or was there foul play involved? What made Jacintha cut herself off from her family immediately after the prank call that she received at the hospital? And when Jacintha's friend visited her at home, was she already dead at that time? Lavina Tandon is live with me from London. She's our correspondent there. Lavina, the Mirror painting a pretty detailed picture through sources of what really happened to Jacintha.
Yes, it does, but we don't, all the police is not confirming anything at this point in time. Once the inquest opens, we'll really get to know whether that was actually the case. But one does know that she had totally cut off from her husband after the call for 2 days, and he was going absolutely mad, and he was calling everyone. He even called the neighbors, and it's the neighbors who tried calling her in the morning at 9:30 to figure out where she was.
Yes.
So she definitely was very isolated, and she had cut herself off. This was a result, I think, of prank call. She was drawn to the edge. What really now needs to be found out, which is why the family is asking for a full inquiry and not just an internal inquiry in the hospital, because they are in turmoil with the radio station now, as we know, is because what happened in the hospital to push her to that sort of edge, because she was apparently not an emotional to the extent that that will draw her to a suicide. So that is what needs to be found out. Did something happen in the hospital which pushed her to the edge, to the extent cut off from her family? She used to speak to her husband several times in the day, and yet just in those 2 days she did not speak to him at all. So she was isolated. She was completely cut off.
Also, Lavina, have her family been questioned at all? Have they, managed to speak to the press or agreed to speak to the press about what they think about all of this?
No, the family is completely mum. They are not speaking to the press at all. The people who are meeting them, like Vaz and the priest and everyone, are speaking to the press. So they have not spoken, but what they really want is that they should be involved in the entire process of investigation,
right,
that the hospital has to take. So that's the whole point.
All right, Lavina, thanks. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much for getting us those details. Well, mystery still surrounds the death of Indian origin nurse Jacintha Saldanha. What made her take her life? So far, there has been compensation and advice offered to her grieving family, but no leads about what drove her to take her life or if there was any foul play involved. Was there someone harassing her? Was there racism involved? Were people giving her death threats? Were there threats to her family? No answers so far to any of these questions. What makes the story murkier are Australian media reports that the Australian radio channel and the London hospital where Jacintha worked are now involved in a bitter dispute. The International Business Times reports that the radio management insists that they made several attempts to contact the hospital before airing the prank call, but the hospital denies this specific claim. Even Indian origin British MP Keith Vaz has now questioned the veracity of statements made by all sides. He says that the accounts given by the Australian radio channel and the hospital simply do not match. Well, the air may finally be cleared on that tomorrow morning when the inquest into Jacintha's death will open in the coroner's court. The cause of her death will be declared after the inquest. The British Prime Minister himself has said that all facts surrounding Jacintha's death should be made public immediately.
Yes, of course. I mean, first of all, let me say again, I mean, it's a dreadful case and it's an absolute tragedy for the family. And when you read of how hard she'd worked across her life and all the things that she'd done and what she cared about health and looking after people, it's just a terrible, terrible case. And as I said yesterday, I'm sure there are lessons to learn. I think in any of these, when these things happen, having the full facts of the case, I mean, it doesn't bring anybody back, but it does, I think, help people come to terms with what has happened.
Meanwhile, the Australian radio channel, whose DJs made the hoax call, have announced a compensation of $500,000 for Jacintha's family, but Jacintha's family has not shown any inclination to accept this blood money. They demand an open and independent probe. The radio station, however, has been silent on what action will be taken against the radio jockeys. Worse, the UK, which has expressed sympathy with the family, hasn't even questioned the hospital where Jacintha worked.